2024 SEMA, we are here. And as you can see, it is setup day, so this is a world premiere. We're here with the Ring brothers to reveal 3 exclusive cars that are gonna blow your mind. This car to my right is one of my favorite cars in the world. The Dodge Charger last year was out of this world, and this is just as much as a contender. This car is beautiful, it's stylish, it's got the original lines of a 70 Cuda that we all know and love, but there's some details here that will blow every single Mopar guy both sides of Bovington Tank Museum. Get in here, let's have a look and check out this absolutely stunning 1970 Plymouth Cuda. Ryan, how's it going, dude?
Excellent, good to see you, man.
So you're here again, you're in force, and every year you seem to reinvent the wheel. You seem to break the mold over and over again, but still leave details in there that make us original car guys smile, you know?
Right, and you know, that's something we strive for, right? With all of these cars, there's styling cues that make them quintessential. And 70 Cuda, I mean, that screams Mopar, right?
Yeah.
It has lines, it has curves that you just want to accentuate, you don't want to change. And we really tried to do that with this car, and I appreciate you saying that.
So this is an E-body, right?
E-body, yes.
Okay, so E-body car. So a Charger for me is a beautiful car, but this is a lot smaller car.
Right.
And a few years ago I had a 340 automatic car, sorry, a 318 automatic car, and what I found was you could just drive it every day. It was small enough to get in every parking space.
Right.
With a Charger, it's so much bigger.
Right.
With this car here, though, it doesn't look like it's just parked up. It looks like it's coming at you. It's
right.
prowling
Yeah.
forward. But there seems to be something different on the front. It looks slightly a little bit longer, maybe?
Yeah, so what we did, we moved the wheelbase ahead 1.5 inches.
Wow.
Moved the wheel opening in the front fenders that same 1.5 inches. So you have a little bit more aggression in the front, and that's where you're getting that look.
Right,
So
okay.
we're stretched out in the wheelbase. The tip to tail, the length of the car is the same.
Okay.
But just moving that wheel 1.5 inches.
Wow, okay,
Yeah.
so come around here a minute, ladies and gentlemen. So what you're saying is you haven't extended the length of the car in any way, shape, or form,
Right.
but the wheel itself has gone from here
Correct.
and moved forward.
And then we moved that wheel opening within the fender forward. But the
Wow.
fender itself is the same length as it always was.
But it looks beautiful, it looks OE. So this 1970 Cuda has been reimagined and modified by the Ring brothers to the highest of standards. But your car at home may also hide a story. That's why I use CarVertical. CarVertical allows me to go online, okay, and I can download an app, which is nice and easy, as simple as me pressing a button. I can download an app and I can do a background check searching over 1,000 resources and over hundreds and hundreds of countries. Using the code HARDUP shown on the screen right now in this exact form in capitals, you get yourself a 20% discount. As you can see, like this car here, this was a normal standard Toyota Supra. The odometer looks good, the financial and legal status looks absolutely fine, but then when you click the title check and the damage, you can see this car has been absolutely smashed to bits. This car has recently been rebuilt, put back on the road, and would look just as pretty. There you go. A little bit later, it's getting completely refurbished and brought back to life. The problem you have is you don't know the history of that car you have at home. If I suggest one thing for you and your family's safety, head home, walk outside the front door, put that registration number in CarVertical, and do yourself a CarVertical check. Save yourself 20% using the code HARDUP, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Hit the link below, and let's get back to this amazing car. Let's go.
Right.
But it looks more aggressive.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And a couple of things I'm also noticing here is normally on the fenders for these Cudas, they're the same as the Dodge Charger, they curl around the bottom of the body itself, then they curve, and then you put a bolt through to sort of retain them in.
Right.
And this doesn't have that, does it? You've completely changed that.
It doesn't. So one of the things that we do at Ring Brothers on most all of our builds is we extend that rocker through.
Yeah.
And that does a couple things. So on the rocker itself, we only have that line going under the door and all the way through to that wheel opening, and your only vertical lines are at the front of the door and the back of the door.
Yeah.
So like on the Charger and the Cuda, stock, this line would have cut all the way through the
down.
rocker.
Yep.
And then you end up, it kind of messes with the flow, right?
It kind of messes with it, yeah.
We build that rocker right off of the quarter all the way through to that front wheel opening.
And it looks beautiful and it looks OE, but obviously it's like it's brought forward a few years, you know? It's really been brought into the modern world. The mirrors look kind of stock, but they look slightly different shape.
Right, so they're factory mirrors. And then, you know, like everything, we just smooth them out a little bit, refine refine those lines, kind of sharpen up.
It looks like a spaceship, dude. Like, it's
sharpen up
beautiful.
some corners. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely love it. And, you know, a lot of people, they go down the route of trying to make them triangular, or they try and, you know, change the design of them.
Right.
What you've done is you've kept them so simple that it doesn't take it away from the car. And like you said, OEM plus, you know, it sort of looks like it was made to be that way.
Right. And, you know, like we were talking before, you know, Mopar, on these cars, they did such an amazing job in styling that just accentuating what they did in 1970 is a lot of times all you need to do. You don't need to reinvent the mirror, for instance.
I get that. I also noticed, like, with every single one of your cars, your gaps are like, most gaps are like 5-6 millimeters. You bring them into 3, and you're still getting that precision of opening and closing.
Right.
And you know what? That is not as easy as it sounds, ladies and gentlemen. You can't just bring that fender forward. You actually have to bring the door either out and closer to the rear quarter and so forth. So either you elongate the skin, or you elongate the rear quarter and the front fender, correct?
We spend a lot of time in the fab shop on those gaps. You know, that's something that when we get to that point where we're setting all our gaps, it's slow down. Like there's no rush about it. Slow down. We take our time because everything is going to be so close. You know, when we open and close these doors, the point where it comes the closest is so close to touching that you know, we bring those gaps.
Gives you the shivers up your back.
Yeah.
But for me, I think that's what it's all about. You don't only build these cars to look good, you make them functional, but you also add these details that only someone like ourselves would recognize.
Right.
But when they do, it's worth it, I can imagine. You know, those little pickups, it's like, oh my God, you did this. You know,
it's so neat. You know, for us, when we do a car that is quintessential again. I know I'm using that word a lot, but the CUDA really is, and it's special, same as the Charger last year, when you have somebody that owns that car or is very familiar with that car.
And they know the details.
Then they pick up on those little tiny things, right?
See, when you changed the roof shape on the Charger, that pickup for me blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, what have you done here? And you're like, yeah, we changed the roof. Right. And you said to me, you're the only guy that's noticed that, you know, without being told.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's really neat for us. You know, and again, you know, like with the CUDA, where these little tiny things, like the rocker that we were talking about, or the mirror that you picked up on, you know, it's refining what we had to begin with and just making it a little bit better. Yeah.
One of my favorite things about this car is a very small detail, and one of those details are these stainless steel screws. If you know anything about a 1970 Dodge Charger or that era of cars, the stainless steel screws that you find holding the door panels on, the mirrors, the grille, those parts are the bits you always remember. They got a beautiful domed head on them. They're really nice. Your actual screwdriver actually fits in them. It sounds very silly, but you haven't color coded them. So on the wing mirrors themselves, they're still stainless steel. When you come around to the grille, you can also see they've left them in place. It would be very, very easy for a company of this stature to easily make this grille be mountable from the rear. Right. You know, and what you've done is you've left those little details that I think are really, really important.
Yeah, you know, it's the same as, you know, a lot of times on the trim or on the glass, we'll smooth it out, we'll weld it together, make it one piece, but we don't, we leave that trim. And the same with those screws, you know, having those in there, it gives it some character, and it's not making it so smooth that it's no longer recognizable as what it is.
I mean, so basically, like on a car like this, the windscreen itself is normally bonded in with that seal that goes around the outside. A lot of modern builders are bringing that glass out and allowing it to be flush fit like a modern car, so you haven't got any, you just have like a small gap around it that the rain can drop out of, basically. And you haven't changed that, and I think that's really, really nice. It still does look a lot nicer and a lot thinner and slimline.
Yeah, so that one, we normally be 3 pieces. You got your sides and your top with the little corner pieces. We welded all that together, body worked it, and then it goes in as one
so
piece.
that's, I assumed this was rubber at Quick Lube.
Nope, this is steel. This is stainless steel, and we welded it together all the way around. Only the lower piece is removable, but yeah, your one piece all the way around the top, and that gets rid of those seams that we normally had, and allows us to get it sitting nice and tight. We did the same in the rear as well. That's one piece all the way around.
Really, it's lovely. Yeah, I think that's really nice. You haven't gone down the route of following suit, you know.
Right.
So straight onto the grille, the most important bit, the bit that you see in your rearview mirror chasing you down the highway. This is absolutely gorgeous. You know, number one, the hood. You know, you've sort of kept, you know, the prowess of the hood of the CUDAs and that kind of stuff, but you've made it completely different. So you've got an absolutely perfect line of carbon fiber running through there, and that line is so important. The weave of carbon fiber can be distorted, it can change.
It's tough.
And when you get down and look at it, it is absolutely flawless from the front to the back. And to get that curvature right, and to get the weave even is impossible.
And get them to line up all the way through. You know, there's 100 little connections and they all line up, and that's tough stuff. But I'm glad you picked up on it because it's something that we're real proud of.
That's the most important thing. You look at brand new McLarens nowadays, and they're off. You know,
right?
You look at this; it's absolutely stunning.
And I don't know if you recognize this yet, but other than just that carbon insert on the cowl, this is a full carbon hood. So it's a bespoke, custom one-off hood. Absolutely. So we're of course our matte on the back, but
still the original area for where you pull the hood underneath. You haven't gone crazy.
We have exposed carbon on the whole underside.
And it's satin as well.
Yeah, yep.
Hang on a minute. So oh my God. That is absolutely gorgeous. That's one piece.
Right. So you have an inner and an outer.
Okay, yeah.
They're made individually, and then they're
bonded together. Yep.
Right.
Is that with like a Sikaflex or whatever it's called?
A panel bond.
Tiger Cell. Yep. Wow. And it's beautiful because what you've done here, you could have easily glossed that and made it shiny, which would everyone be like, oh, that's really pretty.
Right.
But you haven't. You've gone satin to follow the satin of the car.
Right.
You've kept it all in, and then as you stand up, you notice other little details that no one else would care about. People order stuff, they'll bring it in. The eyes on the valve covers.
Right.
Beautiful. Like, aren't they so cool? It's like it's coming to get you.
Yeah.
You know?
So part of that. So on the valve cover says pink eye.
Yeah.
It's a red eye crate motor from Chrysler.
Yeah.
And at some point after it was painted pink,
it got infected.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
We were talking about it, and I think it was Jim actually that brought it up, and he said, boy, since the car is pink and it's got a red eye, it really ought to say a red eye or a pink eye on the engine. So that's where we came up with this badging and put pink eye.
So what you're saying, when I'm leaving, my eyes are going to sting like I've been in the bathroom too long.
Right, and the name of the car is Infected.
Infected.
Right. And it's
so good.
It's. We try to have a lot of fun with that, naming and the badging and whatnot. And speaking of the badging, one of the things we did with that Infected is you'll notice it's the shape of the badge itself
would have normally been upright.
Right. So on the tail panel of the original CUDA, it would have apostrophe and then CUDA. So we took that apostrophe, turned it 90 degrees, and then put our badge in there. So it's just a nod back to the original badging.
But when you look at the badge in a minute, ladies and gentlemen, the badge itself isn't just a badge that's been made and thrown on. The contour of the badge follows the actual the design and the flair of the inner fender. So the badge itself is actually contoured to go around. The details are out of this world. And I mean, even something as normal as a make sure I've got no buckles. These caps here on the coolant reservoir and the valve on the valve covers, they are full billet aluminium, right? And you make every single one. And then you look at the master cylinder, the brake fluid reservoir. That is made out of like 4 or 6 different pieces of steel, and then you bead rolled all the edges to follow the same marks and designs here.
Right. So on the master cylinder reservoir, actually that was machined, but that was done on a manual bridge port.
Wow.
And it was an individual pieces, and then we brought that in the same kind of airframe designs that we've got in the hinges, we've got in the air cleaner cover, and on the master cylinder reservoir. So it's actually a stock Chrysler master cylinder, and then we make the reservoir to go around it. Go with the car, right?
And like the hinges are gorgeous, they're stunning, when you're looking from the car from the side. You're getting the pinky purple accent being like sort of contrasted against the fender, if that makes sense. You're getting that. And then the firewall, what they've also done is they've put a bead roll in the firewall to resonate exactly where the weather plate would sit.
Exactly.
And that for me is everything. How easy would it be to lose that and make it completely flat? And then the front fenders, you've also, so making sure I've got no buckles, the front inner fenders, these are normally hidden, or they're painted satin black or hidden out the way. They're so violently cut. That looks like it's meant to be. It is so beautiful. And then you've got like the strut turrets going in.
Yep, kind of a detail there, to mimic that strut tower bump out. And the inners themselves, like you say, that aggressive look when we pop the hood. We don't want it to all go away. You want it to look aggressive, right? You know that you've got some big tires up under those aprons. And same thing with our Ring Brothers hinges. Bringing that outside color into the engine compartment, but overall we've got the exposed satin carbon and all of the satin black. But then the hinges and the aprons being nice and loud and in your face. And same thing up on that cowl, mentioning where that bead roll is. That goes back to taking those things that made this car what it was, accentuating them, using them as inspiration, and not getting rid of them completely and smoothing everything out.
See, when you normally look inside the engine bay of a Mopar, you've normally got horrible rubber grommets running down the outside, which are your buffers and stuff. But the line of this fender, the way it drops and then it's remolded, this is not OE. This is completely different. But how do you get this line here? Because that is beautiful.
What we did here is, so this is started as 1/4-inch plate steel.
Yep.
And we machined in these airframe pockets.
So that's 1/4-inch.
Right. And then we remade the sides of the fender. So this is your factory CUDA fender, and from this body line down and over, we remade that one piece. So that way, if you know on the stock ones, when it's just sheet metal, you end up with this between each bolt.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing you can do about it. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And it's the nature of putting a bolt every foot in the stock location. But having it be thick, it does a couple things. It really strengthens and stiffens these fenders. And gives them. We want everything to be laser straight, right? So when you unbolt and rebolt these down, everything stays right where it is. You're not pulling on it. You're not getting those weird buckles. So that's what we've got going on there.
Wow, it's just gorgeous. And you start getting down, you start noticing these little details. Like I'm down here on my knees and I'm looking at the lower valance, and the lower valance is one of the most important parts of the CUDA. Obviously the 70 CUDA, you've got the split in the middle and you've got these elongated gaps with the eyes either side.
Right.
But that valance below, it's so, you were saying earlier that the paint is resonated from the top to the bottom. So you're still getting this black, the grey and the pink, and then it's followed into the valance.
Right.
And I think that's such an important detail that you couldn't, if you didn't do that, people wouldn't recognize it, but now they're picking up on it. It is a thing of beauty.
Well, and it's one of those where, I'll be real honest with you, this originally didn't have this color. It was just pink.
Okay.
And it was more or less done. We're looking at it. And that's one of those things where, end of the day, during the day, you're walking by and we have conversations about, boy, something's just grabbing me there, right? And that's one of those things that happens in the shop a lot, is these kind of conversations, as a group, we just kind of spitball what we're seeing, and there's no statement that you shouldn't say. If you're thinking it, say it. And,
exactly.
And we talk about it, right? And that was one of those things where it was too much pink. It needed something, and so we ended up bringing that grill color into that mouth of the valance. And speaking of the mouth, so we widened that. It's a stock valance, but we reshaped and made these.
So the valance would normally be sort of below here. It would be a lot like 3 inches more in.
Right. Yep. So we brought that out, a bigger radius, bigger swoop. And then and made it deeper, so it goes all the way back to that radiator condenser.
Wow, so actually there's a line here, ladies and gentlemen. So the satin only goes back so far, and then it goes black behind it to basically pretend that that's where it ends.
Exactly.
But it follows it back, so you get a lot more strength.
Yep.
You got a lot more sort of air force in there. It doesn't drop out. It goes
precisely
all the way to the radiator.
Exactly why we did it. Yep. And and then below that we have the same satin that's on the hood. So this air dam that's on the front, that's
resonates up.
Yep. That's all handmade out of aluminum. And it's the same black as we have on the trim, and then all the way through, right? So
it's absolutely stunning.
On the grill also. So normally that's 3 pieces. We actually made it 1 piece. And
so normally there's like a line just next to this indicator here,
right? Yep.
And then you've got the center piece and then the outer piece. It's 3 separate, and you made it as 1 piece.
Made it all 1 piece, and then same with the trim. So this stainless
that would normally
trim,
be like a click-on.
Yeah, and there was a bunch of them. You'd have like an end piece, center, another end piece. We welded all that together, bonded it onto the grill, and then we put a part line in it, so it still looks like it's
got the trim,
but it fits nice. And the problem with the factory trim is it never fits nice. They're laying over one another, so you always end up with a weird step, and they're never quite on there perfect. That's just the nature of it.
And also these machines that have been developing these trims were developed 50 years ago. People have taken molds of them, they go out of shape, they never fit.
Right.
It's the same with panels that you buy. They're never gonna fit. These cars were made 50 years ago, and now they're made with an inferior product, an inferior steel, an inferior machine, and you've just got to keep chasing yourself, you know?
Right.
But you know what, mate? It's absolutely gorgeous. And obviously it's powered by Motul, so it's lubricated by Motul, keeping all your bits and pieces apart, which is nice.
Yep.
Motul are a good friend of ours. We were lucky enough to go to Goodwood Festival of Speed with Motul, and we were lucky enough to hang out with Sun Kang. And I'll tell you what, when a brand works with a company that they care about and dedicate to, not only are you proud because you know that it will run right, it's lubricated okay, it was cooled right, but you stand next to each other being proud that you depend on each other.
Absolutely.
So walking down the passenger side, absolutely gorgeous. And these wheels here, completely different to what I was expecting.
Right.
I see you've gone for like the torque thrust feel from the 70s. You've still got the 5-spoke.
Right.
You've gone for the satin, you've picked it up. You've gone for the black, you've picked it up. You've got these accent pieces. But then you've got like, instead of having a dome cap, like a normal bolt-on cap, you've gone flat. And it just looks gorgeous.
So HRE made the wheels for us. They make all the wheels we put on all our vehicles. They do an incredible job for us, and they're so good at picking up the design elements that we're trying to pull out of these cars. You know, one of the things too on these spikes, you can see how they come out and they're back cut. You know, those little things that you don't see at a glance, but when you start looking at it, you realize just how neat.
You just, at a quick glance, you assume that leg of the alloy wheel itself just goes to the rim like you'd expect. And I take this as like a 2 or 3 piece rim. So, okay.
And then also, so we painted out this black just to make that star
look
even
elongated.
Right.
And you've also picked up on the carbon fiber again. So the only thing that I see, which I really, really love, is these Bayer calipers. They're white, and what that does is that picks up on the interior because nothing else outside is white. And I love that. You could have been very easy for you to throw a white pinstripe on it, or even throw, you know, a white tinge onto the hockey stick at the back. But you didn't do it, and I love that. I think that's so important.
We really like the idea of this car being as loud and bright as it is on the outside, and then just as loud and bright on the inside, but letting it be a surprise. Like that, you know, that brake caliper, that's your teaser, and as soon as you look inside, you know, it's so
blown
crisp.
away. So one of the things I'll say is they developed a car called the Pink Panther, I believe the color was, for the 70 Chargers that were pink. And when I walked in, I was like, oh my God, they did it Pink Panther. And then I came over and I'm like, it's a lot brighter, it's a lot nicer, it's a lot crisper. And then Mike was saying to me that when you look at it, you kind of get this purple twinge. So when it's in the shade, the lower areas look purple, and then the pink really pops up top. And I think that's really important because it's so easy to sort of go down the route of just throwing a normal stock OE color on it, but then you've really made it yours, haven't you?
And again, you know, that's like we keep saying, we're taking what was there and refining it a little bit.
You're making good great.
And you know, Mike is so good with color like that. You know, he plays with it, and he's like a mad scientist, just mixing up those colors until, you know, like
until he's in love.
Just looking like,
his heart's pounding at his chest, and he's in game.
Spray it out, and then we all look at it, you know, and as soon as we saw that color, like, we don't need to mix up anymore. Like, it's perfect.
It is amazing.
That's what we've got here. You know?
I want to walk around the back. I want to check the back of the car out. But what I want to say is a huge thanks to the Ring brothers. These guys, I've met them last year. I've actually been following them for 10 years since I came to my first SEMA 10 years ago. And I remember being outside with Arc Audio and Chip Foose and looking around your car. And I remember back then being embarrassed to come over it. And I was looking there, looking at the lines, looking at the different things you did. But I never appreciated it as much as I do today because I can really stand here and go through different refinements that we can actually chat about. And thank you so much for the opportunity. It means so much to me and the viewers. Thank you.
We love the fact that you come over, and I enjoy talking with you every year. It's great.
Thank you, man. Let's go around the back. I mean, I'm noticing straight away, like the glass looks original, but the trims seem to be a lot nicer, a lot more modern.
Again, we welded that trim together, made it one piece. You know, one of the other things too is we brought that black across the top of the door. You know, obviously,
which isn't done,
right. Obviously, the top of the hood and top of the fenders is black, but we brought it across the top of the door,
and then up and round.
And then it picks up that trim.
And it's just the contrast between the satin, like grayish, and the black that you've done behind as well. It's really gorgeous. I'm getting a bit excited about the interior, but we're going to save that till last. And then, so the hockey stick. Sorry, I'm getting a bit overwhelmed. I'm getting a bit excited because this car is blowing my mind. The hockey stick on these cars is one of the most important detail. You know, normally you'd have 340, 440 Hemi, whatever in that. To get the Ring brothers accent through it and obviously pick up on that, I think that's beautiful. It's a real nice accent. You didn't go crazy. Is that painted or is that a decal?
That's a decal, and part of the reason for that is, you know,
original. They were all original. Exactly.
That's how they were. And again, you know, like the screws you picked out in the front and on the mirrors, that vinyl, having it not be too smooth. You want it smooth and elegant, but not too smooth. And you know, it's something that's important to us. Looking at the rear bumper on this, so we did a couple things there. It was in the back of the car, actually. I'll start up top on that spoiler. So original spoiler was a lot more.
Is that like a foam or like a plastic?
They were fiberglass originally. So they were a lot more bulbous, a lot more round. We refined all of these edges, sharpened things up, and these bump outs here, originally there were 3.
Okay.
There was 1 in the center, and these were over a little bit further.
Okay, and you've just followed them down to the bumpers?
To the bumperette, right. So we got rid of the one in the middle, and then we lined up the bumperettes with the bump out on the spoiler.
Yeah.
They were set in here.
It looks like it's mirrored.
Right.
It looks like it's mirrored. And then also, on a normal rear valance, that piece is just one piece, and you have a couple of square cutouts for your exhaust to come through the middle. Not only have you got these absolutely stunning bridges that you've brought out to obviously allow the bumper to fit, but the bumper itself looks like it's a bit more curved at the edges. You've followed that round as opposed to it just sort of sitting there, if that makes sense.
So we tucked the bumper in, and we narrowed it width to get it into those quarters. We want a bumper to be a bumper. Yeah. We don't want it so smooth that it's
the problem you got. If you bring it in and you're going to tuck it into the body and you're going to make it perfect, you kind of lose what it is.
Right.
You lose that part of it being a separate item.
Precisely.
You might as well paint it pink. You know, it's irrelevant. You know.
Right. And then down below, so if you look at this,
you've still got your square tips.
Square tips.
You've widened them.
These are designed and machined in-house, so they're solid billet. And then this piece here, if you get real low, this whole rear valance is billet. This was all machined.
Really?
Yeah. Run your hand across the center there. You'll feel that we left the machining lines in it. And what that does is that mirrors the carbon that's on that hood that you picked up, where the two weaves.
You see the line in the middle and you follow the weave.
And then the weave does like this, but in billet.
And when you look under here, you see the lines and it feels like the diffuser on like a hypercar or something like that. You're still getting the ridges, but still like that 70s era you've picked up on. I think that's gorgeous. And like the valance itself, it looks like it's
So we brought
it's one piece.
Right.
So you've made it in with the body.
We extended the quarter, brought it around, and it's one piece all the way from the, really, if you start at the front wheel opening, follow the rockers back, all the way through the quarters, all the way around the back, it's all seamless, one piece. Same up on top, where you would normally have these lines through the center. That's all smoothed out.
And also the rear window would be flushed like that on a Cuda anyway. The light slight ridge that you've got, is that OE?
It's OE.
Okay.
Accentuated just
so you brought it out a little bit bigger because normally it's a bit smaller.
Just a little bit wider, sharpened up those points, but then faded it out through the middle.
This rear panel here.
Yep, taillight panel, yeah.
One piece?
One piece.
Okay.
Of course, the bezel around the light.
That's exactly how it should be.
Is how it should be, yep.
But and the number plate's been brought in a bit as well?
Yeah, so we redefined that shape, sucked it in so we could be just behind flush on the rear license plate.
Wow.
And then, same, we were talking about gaps. One of the things on this spoiler, they normally sat up off the deck lid.
Yeah.
And not very well, to be honest. And then what we did here.
Oh, it's even got the lift up number plate with a gas tank. It's just so original stuff,
So we brought that same gap, that same 1/8 inch that's on the door gaps.
Yeah.
And that's what we have between the spoiler and the quarter.
So you could have really closed that down and it would rub like they normally do. So you kind of, and it looks like you haven't done anything. I'm not being rude.
Yeah, no, that's the goal. So many times people look at the cars and they know that something's been done. They can't put their finger on quite what it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it takes a minute, and then they see it. And that's what we go for, right? It's real easy to make something just so wild and in your face that it's obvious that you whatever it is that you have to do. I get that. What we like to try and do is have those things be almost unnoticeable. Yeah. And then once you do notice it, you're like, all right.
Wow, blows your mind.
Right.
You know what? These guys, they go above and beyond every time, and I'm struggling not to smile because I'm just smiling from ear to ear because it's absolutely gorgeous. And how I would describe it is like the most masculine, feminine car I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%.
Small shape, beautiful color, but you've still got that masculine engine. You've still got that pistol grip. You've still got that. Right. Your new carbon steering wheels are out of this world.
Right.
They are beautiful. They're a little bigger. You can hold them. Okay, so with the exterior completely covered, I'm sure there's hundreds of details that I haven't picked up on the outside, but we picked up on the key ones that I think are important. But we're going to jump in the interior and find out just how beautiful it is. From the outside looking in, the white leather for me is everything. It's like these Teslas nowadays. I don't rate them. I'm not really an EV kind of guy, but I do love the brightness of the interior. Right. And when you went for a white interior, I wasn't expecting it at all. And straight away, the bolsters on the seats are beautiful. You got kind of a modern edge to it. but really you've still got that bucket seat feel straight away, you know?
Right. Let me get the door for you. You hop right in there.
I got no buckles on my trousers.
Yeah.
I should be pretty good. Right. Wow, okay. Oh, the smell of leather.
Right, brandy new. So I'll tell you a couple things. So these seats, one of the things we did to tie in some of the styling elements from the outside to bring it inside.
Yeah.
We talked about the white on the caliper, and of course
the
white leather here. But there's limited chrome on this car. We've got it at the front bumper.
Yeah.
We've got it in the door handles.
Yeah.
Which the door handles, by the way, let's look at those real quick. You can stay in, but I'll explain what we got going on. So normally, if you remember, these would have had a split, and you would have had a keyhole on one side.
Oh yeah, and then only half of it lifts
only
up.
half of it lifts up. So we redesigned those. If you stick your head out, we redesigned it, got rid of that, and made it one piece. So they never aligned properly, right? They never aligned.
No.
So we made it one piece, and then we've got keyless entry. So you've got a fob that unlocks the door. And
that is, I didn't even, this is how good you guys are, because when we mention OE Plus, right, OEM Plus, it is about those details that are so similar to the originals.
Right.
That are perfect now.
Right.
And I think when you don't notice them, also it works as some sort of compliment as well.
Right.
Because when you don't notice them, you know you've done your job right.
Absolutely.
Oh.
So we've got chrome on the front bumper, chrome on the door handles, chrome on the rear bumper, and we wanted to bring that inside as well. We've got the white on the calipers, of course, the blacks. We've got the black and white in here.
I love this.
Yeah.
It looks like you've got like the front of the nose of the Cuda,
right,
with the perforated leather,
right,
and the chrome. It's just so beautiful.
So this chrome. So these started as factory door panels.
Okay.
Modified them, smoothed them out.
Original screws,
right? This piece here, so the original door panel just had kind of a little tuck point.
Yeah.
It was plastic, right? And it had a little tuck point and a little kind of fake seam. So we opened that up and then took...
You've also elongated the moldy, you brought it right out.
Just reshaped it a little bit, and then on 3/8 by 3/8 square aluminum, we've got that to fit inside of that door panel.
Wow.
It mounts from the backside of the door panel, and then additional chrome. These pieces here on these seats. So we machined these. It's got the Panther Star little logo in the center,
logo,
right. So that's all your adjustments for the seat. That's your tilt, of course, but we wanted it to look like something that would have been on a 70 Cuda. These weren't, but it definitely could have.
But they looked like they were OE. Do you know what I mean? Again, like you just assume that they were there, you know?
Right. Ring Brothers carbon fiber steering wheel.
See, I've had so many people contact me from the UK recently going, dude, find how much the steering wheels are, because like I know that you're selling these now, right?
Right.
But
absolutely.
art is a piece of art form.
Yeah.
And the thickness is very similar, not to sound rude, to like a modern BMW.
Yeah.
You're getting that feel of like, I've got massive hands.
Like you're holding on to something.
Exactly. And normally in a Cuda or a 70 Charge, you have a very, very thin Bakelite steering wheel that you could just about hold on to, and it would be bashing your knees. But I feel like I'm a pilot in a cockpit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I feel like I'm just ready to go. I feel like it's about to prowl out, you know?
Right. So the dash, carbon fiber dash, and again, this normally would have had a split line right here, and your instrument cluster would have been
one side
separate
with the
from
switches,
from
and your light puller and that.
That's where it's separated. So we molded, bonded that, made it one piece, and then we laid real carbon over the top of that one piece dash. The bezels, we made those out of steel and then chromed them. So we basically made a large dimple die specific to the size of the gauge that we needed.
And then you've got
stamp those out.
The Ring Brothers logo in the middle as well, just on there.
Go ahead and turn the key just one position to the right, and we'll light up the
oh
gauges
my
for
God.
You. So Dakota Digital did an awesome job, and if you check it out, there's not a red line, there's a pink line. So the tax got a pink line instead of a red line.
Sorry, officer, I was not redlining, I promise.
Right.
Oh my God.
And we've got the clock, factory looking clock there on the far side, and
it's just beautiful. One thing I was going to ask you, the roll cage itself, it seems to be a slightly smaller diameter to a normal steel roll cage, or is that how it should be?
So we do them in 1 5/8.
Okay.
Obviously you can go bigger, you can go a larger diameter, but for us it's a good size that allows us to get the styling and the safety that we want out of it. And the way we build these roll cages in and make it part of the vehicle, once you get down behind this dash, and then we're tied into the structure rather than it being a standalone like
right.
roll cage.
And it doesn't
part of the car.
We're not following it down here. You're not flat plating to the floor. You're actually mounting it into the actual original monocoque body, right?
Right, exactly. Yep. On the door. So also, if you look over here, we've got same as we did on that Charger. These are modernized latches, or PT Cruiser latches, and that's what makes this door shut like that.
Wow.
And not like
clang.
Yeah, like a 70 Cuda normally does, right? Stock dash, reshaped, redefined a little bit, tightened some things up.
Yeah, you've got a few more lines in it. They're like, this little ridge here is a lot more pretty. You're sort of getting that sort of just an extra detail that you didn't need that you've added to it. It's just beautiful, and you could even see, instead of having aluminum plates where the vents are, you've actually fully stitched it in, and I think that's really nice.
Yep.
Jump in the passenger side.
Yeah.
So a couple of details I've noticed, people don't realize that audio companies now, some audio companies make speakers, some people make amplifiers, some people make head units.
Right.
When you look at this car, the speakers you've gone for are really, really old school. They've got that chrome bezel with just a grill, something like you could have bought at like an Automart shop in the 70s.
Right.
And then you've got the tweeters above them. You haven't gone crazy by putting tweeters up here on the dash. You haven't taken anything away from that.
Right. Now I'll tell you what, this stereo is pretty impressive. So what you're not seeing is what looks like wheel tubs.
Yeah.
That's all subwoofer.
Really?
So the top part is wheel tub. The part where it squares off and goes that down at an angle, that's all subwoofer.
Wow, and this lovely luggage rack at the back. That is so pretty.
So this is a transaxle car. So that means we've got an engine in the front, torque tube through the middle, the transmission and rear end are in the back of the car together. So that bump out here in the center, that's actually where the transmission is in this car. And it splits the weight front and rear significantly. And then we've got subwoofers filling up every bit of the last little bit of space we've got in the back.
That's amazing. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, a transaxle. So a normal car, you have an engine at the front and you have a transmission bolted to the rear.
Correct.
Then you have a prop shaft or a drive shaft going to the back, and then the axle will obviously differentiate the drive through the two wheels.
Right.
But what we've got here is a torque tube. So basically, that torque tube bolts to the engine.
Right.
And then that sends like a prop shaft through the middle.
Correct.
And then all your gear changes and everything is at the rear.
Right.
And so we got this little picture here. This car here, not only does it look gorgeous, it looks menacing, have that feminine kind of inkling to it, but then when you're in it, it's like the most masculine thing you've ever been in. When you start looking underneath it, that's when the details and the design come into their own. Normally what you find with a chassis, you have chassis rails that are normally made out of steel, like a 2x3 or whatever, or they go up and down, and then you have a floor pan on the top, and then you've got these recesses areas which are like recessed. This car itself has got double skins. You've got a skin on top, then you've got the rails, and then you've got skin on the bottom, so it's basically flat bottom.
Right, full belly pan. The only thing that's exposed and open is obviously where the exhaust needs to come through and where that torque tube comes through. But otherwise, the bottom of this car is as smooth, as shiny, and as detailed as the top of the car.
Look at this. So that transaxle here, fully custom lower chassis, mounted like a subframe that bolts up and in. Absolutely stunning arms. I mean, this vehicle, even the plates that are going under the skin itself, they are fully bead rolled as well. They're absolutely beautiful. Mate, I could be here all day. I could have the longest video ever taken at SEMA just talking to you, man. I love you to bits.
Yeah.
But I hear that this is just the tip of the iceberg.
It's just number 1 out of 3, man. We got 2 more to look at.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to tell you what they are just yet, but we are going to transition into the next one.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't go anywhere, and keep an eye on my bell icon, please, and my subscribe button, because very shortly we're going to be giving you an exclusive reveal of the last 2 Ring Brothers cars. Keep an eye on my channel, and please, if you're at SEMA, head over to the amazing Ring Brothers. Their booth number is 23191 in the Central Hall. See you soon.